Welcome to Starfleet Universe On Call. I am Paul Franz, owner of Franz Games. I run SFU Online, Come Online, and Starfleet Warlord. Just a reminder how to join us at Talkcast every Thursday night starting at 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time. You can either call on the phone just dial 605-562-0444. Just follow the directions, call ID 17702. Or you can participate on the web. Just go to TalkShoe website at www.talkshoe.com or search for call ID 17702. Or if you want the best online experience, where you want to go to is twitch.tv at twitch.tv/SFU on call. And you will find us there and you'll be able to join the chat room and enjoy Dave's these days weekly updates, not weekly updates, hourly updates or whatever. When it comes to the football game, it's happening on Thursday nights because it's that time of year. And of course, if you need to contact me for any reason, my email address is sfuoncall@gmail.com. That's sfuoncall@gmail.com. Also, you can follow me on Twitter. Just go to my account, which is sfuoncall. If you're going to follow my personal account, that's Paul Franz, Paulfranz. Yes, I still have a Twitter account. And of course, my business account, which is Franz Games, FranzGames. And again, there is no T in that. And of course, this lovely Talkcast. Get the Turn of Podcast available on iTunes and various other feeds around the net. Some quick news from A to B. Steve Cole is still recovering from his physical therapy. He's still doing physical therapy to recover from his surgery. And of course, also in the past week, we have a Call to Arms Starfleet Book 1.2 Fellowship Roster Card Pack has been revived and is now available. And this week, found on the online store, we have the Dread Pirate Aldo. It's $3. It's a 16-page preview of the Prime Directive Federation. This includes a fiction story, sample characters, weapons, and equipment with data for both PD-20 Modern and GURPS. Moving onward and forward, of course, we have SFU Online Tournament. We have the Sapphire Stars 17 tournament. That round 1 is complete. Round 2 is almost complete. We have only one more game that can be completed to have the semifinal round set. Moving onward to the online client, actually not much has been done with the actual update to the client itself, but I did post online to the two Facebook pages. I have not posted to Twitter. I plan on doing that. Which is the link to the YouTube channel, which is for the Andromedan, is the account. You should be able to find me there. I have to double check to see what the link is, because to be honest, it's been a while since I've been advertising that account. It's not on the SFU on call account, though you can find it there because there's a playlist for SFU Online, SFU Online Client tutorials. I maintain a playlist for this account on SFU on call for YouTube. So you want to find it on YouTube, just go to youtube.com/at SFU on call, and you'll find this YouTube account. And then there's a playlist that I keep, which is the SFU Online Client tutorials. And there's a little more 15-minute tutorial on different tips and tricks to using the client better. So that's an update on the client for this week. When it comes to the library report, there's no updates, though I did receive an update from Frank about one of the cargo pods, which needs to be updated when it comes to the hydrants. If I recall correctly, the thing is one of the pallets. I have to double check on that, but it was one of those things when it comes to transportation, that it was too large. It's 30 boxes, and it actually only has 10, and that kind of thing. A minor issue that needs to be posted up in the library. But there has been nothing posted, so just to let you know. And with that, that is the news for this week. And it's me, so one Paul Phones, welcoming you to Starfleet Universe On Call. And tonight, you got me, you got Doug. Say hi, Doug.
Hi, Doug.
And that's it for this evening. So it's going to be a slim pickings, but that's fine. It's sometimes it
Slim pickings.
Sometimes
yeah, slim pickings.
No. Oh, yeah. No, I don't want the extra amount of tools at the moment. Okay. Just want to set up my Twitter and make that as all. It's on that Twitter. Twitch over there, as you all know. Have one quick comment and another, which is the topic for today evening. I'm sure Doug's going to recognize the one, and I'm still going to bring it up anyway. Okay, dun, dun, dun. Okay, I don't want to screw things up. So I'm just to do this, which is here and here. Yeah, that's it. I'm surprised no one is screamed yet about this. For those of you who haven't been on the discussion board, if you've been watching the Sapphire Star 17 tournament, it fell into a little bit of mayhem there. Because one of the more favorite topic, though, I still have the archives of the Call for Fire versus the Pure Impulse Activity one. That was a interesting discussion. That was a very heated discussion, to say the very least. And that was one that, after we're all said and done, I saved off, and then we said, okay, we never shall speak of this again. But this time, we're talking about the subject of how to balance tournament ships. This is without any data to back it up. Well, not necessarily no data, but there are some things that are kind of evident. And I just want to bring up the topic real quick. And then I'm going to be moving on to the main topic for this evening. So,
I just had a thought about that.
Which one?
Possibly the most sociopathic thought I've had in a long time.
That's okay.
The balancing tournament ships.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that I realize is that the data feedback part of that loop has to do with the fact that you have a lot of different people, but the tournament ships aren't all played equally.
That is true.
Necessarily.
That is true.
And they're playing in varying degree of skill by each individual person playing them, even though they may be masters at their particular game at any particular time over the decades.
Right.
And a particular thing with this is some of the things are just seem to be next to impossible to balance. The Andromedan is one that comes to mind, but that's besides the point. A potential way,
Romulan TKE.
A potential way of really figuring out the balance, and this is going to be possibly something that will get me roasted for saying it, but then again, I don't care. I'm quite familiar with the smell of roast Doug in my life. And it's a simple, yet possibly difficult thing to do. Teach 2 sets of AI to play SFB and have them play out everything to see if they can figure out strategies and flaws that are absolute horrible things that people never really got around to, or that they worked around, because there's a lot of times when we've been discussing gameplay over the decades and we'll theory craft a particular thing, but when the rubber meets the road, the theory crafted thing very often also gets chucked out the road because of that ancient saying, no plan survives first contact with the enemy.
Right.
And what I was just it just the thought just literally popped in my head right there when you were talking about that. About as much as I am not a good proponent or supporter of the AI for the arts and other things, given the number of variables in play that there are for SFB matches, it's entirely possible that if you have AI go at it, with every single possible matchup with tons of different strategies and also with just the own AI learning curve, and you just dedicate one computer to it for, good few weeks or month or so, and you keep checking it to make sure you tweak it so that the thing keeps trying different stuff. Maybe the generated feedback report could come back with some percentages that say this matchup is unbalanced 60-40, that unmatched is even. Here's some different strategies that fix problem X that you threw at it.
Mm-hmm.
So that was just kind of a general thought that came together.
Yeah.
There you go, because me not AI engineer, I'm sure someone out there listening might be, or at least be much more knowledgeable in it than I am. Enjoy.
Understood. I think the AIs might not be that good for the number of variables that are required to actually know and learn. That's the rules for SFB. But given that, point is taken when it comes to that. The big issue is basically what it comes down to, and the way I hear it, is the limitations of the ship versus the tactics employed by the ship. Are there tactics that can be employed by the ship within the current ship that can then mitigate any issues they have with the deficiencies of that ship?
Well,
and
the thing is, the other thing is, when you're trying to talk about balancing these things,
mm-hmm.
you know, maybe it would be an easier thing to balance out a tournament setup if you didn't try to shoehorn every single race in the game or every single faction in the game into a tournament ship.
I understand. Well, that's one thing. Even here's the thing: they haven't tried to shoot hard them all. Actually, the number has been pretty stable. Yeah, we added the Zendarians and the Vudar, but both really, I don't think anyone's really going rah rah rah. Let's balance those. And I agree.
Well, yeah, but I mean, even if you take it in the 2010s version, okay, I think they had too many at that point, and that's just my opinion.
Okay, understood.
I think there was too many at that point, and adding more to it doesn't help.
I understood.
So.
And well, okay, but the thing is, we've got the step that we currently got, and that's not going to change. Now, I think everyone would agree that there are some ships that the matchups that you're not going to win. For example, no matter what we do to the Andromedan, we'll never be able to defeat the Orion, even with the original Andromedan ship. You couldn't defeat you had a hard time defeating the Orion, and I know that because I've played it. But more to the point, when it comes to tactics versus the ship, big change that happened when Paul Scott took the Andromedan and flew it with a totally different set of tactics. Originally, the Andromedan, well, all the tactics were based on a very simple tactic: fly in, hit as hard as you can, then displace away and run away. Paul Scott went, wait a minute, we are losing out because of we're taking that chance on the displacement device. Why don't we use the displacement device to as part of the attack, to use the B turn range and the ability of the Andromedan to do close in fights and the panel dump to defeat the opponent and staying close. You don't have to go flying off during every single battle run, and that difference between it was called New Jersey versus South Carolina tactics when it comes to Andromedans, and that changed things greatly for that. So
yeah, was he the one that was famously introduced like the robot play? Basically.
Well, not really robot play, but the idea of what tactics to use with the Andromedans. Of course, Paul Scott was a multi rated ace and could fly, basically get the gold out in almost any ship. He tried to do it with the Hydrant and gave up after twice. He defeated.
It's just too Mitsia. Too
that
vulnerable to the Mitsia.
right, which is exactly why he can't be done. It can be done. It just takes a lot of luck. But anyhow, get back to we're talking about now. As just quick note, just because of as anyone who's been listening to me long enough knows that I love play the Andromedans. Okay, so I'm one of those few people, one of those crazy people that in the Sapphire Star tournament I will play the Andromedan. In fact, probably next time I play, I'll be playing the Andromedan. Big surprise. And then anyone say, okay, Paul's playing with the Andromedan. We gotta make sure we play ships that go defeat the Andromedan. You'd be a fool to do that, because I'm one player in 16. You don't want to do that. But anyway, okay. What the issue is, and I'm going to go with actually the almost demigod called Paul Scott. When it comes to the Andromedan, in that his original idea, and now this is way back in the day. I mean, way back in the day. This is before they nerfed it. And what Paul Scott said, and I was there when they were discussing this. And that is that the Andromedan needed was just take the current Andromedan and take out the batteries. Actually, he wanted two. Two is impossible to fly, in my opinion. It's impossible to fly Andromeda with only two batteries. You need at least 3. 4 would be perfect, because then you could do at least one dump. But that can be fixed. That can be fixed. And that's as I noted in my post on the discussion board. That's one of those things that I think is solvable, and have so the Andromeda can do at least one panel dump. I'm not saying that he can continue on and on and on. I'm saying that he can do one panel dump. And actually, in that case, to solve that problem, one thing I noted was actually, it was just a note in my post, which was to add an idea of a mini energy module, which can be put in the hangar, and that allows you to actually do a panel dump once. Because then it goes in, it doesn't go into the batteries, it goes into the energy module. When it goes to the energy module, you can't just pull the power out of the energy module. You have to transport it out and let it dissipate. That's the only way you can remove the energy from the energy module. But I digress. That's one of those minor things. The major one that I pointed out was that it needs its power back. Because the biggest issue that the Andromedan has is not the crunch power. It's not defense for the most part. It still needs a little help with the defense. As I said, I think it needs at least one panel dump to be able to survive. But one step at a time here. And that is, it needs power. It needs power for one reason. And that is, speed is one of the only defenses it has against seeking weapons. The only thing it has against seeking weapons. Because Andromedans don't have wild weasels. They have what, 6 phaser 2s?
They get one T-bomb, right?
And one T-bomb. And the T-bomb is available and can be used as a defense against the scatter pack. That's why if you've ever seen someone play like the Zinni or the Klingon against the Andromedan and they launch the scatter pack will not have the uber stack of drones. The stack of 6 drones is going like the big nuclear space mine. No, they'll fan them out. So like one will go, will be directly toward the one, be off to the side, so forth. Basically, the idea is to have at least 3 stacks of two drones, and with the 2 stack, the multiple stacks of drones, you get one T-bomb could definitely take out 2. It might be fortunate and take out 4, but next to impossible to take out 6. Now sometimes, depending upon where he launches and so forth, can almost get it back into a stack of 6, but usually you can get into a stack of 4 and 2 if it's flying around long enough. Of course, if you're flying around long enough, i.e. greater than 3 turns, the drones go bye-bye, which is always something to keep an eye out for when it comes to the Andromeda. Of course, you don't want to be flying around with the drones on the board for mainly one reason. Usually you don't want that mobile terrain to keep, to force you to fly like possibly closer to the wall or further away from the wall, wherever the drones are. You don't want that. So the drones need more power. So my suggestion was take the 2 APR and make it 4 AWR. AWR because of the displacement device itself takes up warp. And if you don't, you can give it 4 APR, and I'd be happy to try that. And I think that might work, not 100%. But if I'm gonna go for it, I'm gonna ask for the big, the big ask, which is AWR instead of APR. So then to keep up speed, even while you're arming this displacement device. Now, there is one thing to be said when it comes to an APR over AWR. The Andromedas never used AWRs, ever. So that could be something against that idea. But as I mentioned in the post here, the biggest issue, of course, is the speed. And because at the moment, as I mentioned here, says at the moment, the Andromedan quickly loses speed because the powers are drained pretty quickly in respect to what might be needed as need to be needed. For example, the PA panels, raise the PA panels from standard to reinforced takes 3 points of energy. So I need at least to keep 3 points of energy in my batteries unused to allow me to save. Okay. And so unless I'm about to do a panel dump, I hit that the batteries always have to have at least 3 points of power in them. And the capacity then, of course, is only 12 points instead of 15 points. So that means that even if I have 3 points of power, I can't use it for speed. I have to keep it for PA panels because you always want to, and because of it doesn't have the extra power, it has to do as much as possible to save energy as it can. And of course, you have to remember the whole gotcha, which is the closed energy system, which is the Andromedans. My understanding, and I have to double check on when it comes to the PA panels, but you can't allocate things for like, a het and never use the het. It's a closed system. If you allocate a het and you don't use the het, you only can use it for a het during the turn, but that power goes back into the batteries because it's a closed energy loop. It's one of those goofinesses of the Andromedans. I just wanted to mention that. I have another. When they tell the Saltorian needs some help, I tend to agree with that.
Oh, hey, on the Andromeda,
Yeah.
just a thought, but since now that you're getting past that, what about just adding a second T bomb to it?
Well, that would definitely help in case of drones, but not plasma.
Now, isn't there something in the game that acts as a T bomb versus plasma?
PA mine, yes. And you're allowed to use a mine, which will take 10 points off a plasma if it's real, or it will identify it as a pseudo if it's not real.
Okay, why not
Again,
let them have
it's,
that too?
well, that's only for one plasma.
Well, yeah, but you know what? Give them a couple, three of those, couple, three or four of those. Give them an option. Give them multiple T bombs and an option to switch the T bombs out in full for the plasma ones when they're playing against plasma chuckers.
That's a possibility. I think the easiest
So
is
let that percolate there,
yeah.
because I mean that could be the difference.
Oh, understood.
That could be a difference,
But
especially if you're. It could be something that gives you a little extra relief when you're playing against Mr. Orion that can outmaneuver you.
that's true. That's true. It definitely would help the situation with the Orion. But obviously, you can't help in his situation with the Fed. But the Fed's the Fed. I'm not sure much.
Well, it would help with everything because I mean, it still takes it's still extra damage potentially, still an
Mm-hmm.
extra maneuver point thing potentially.
True.
Something that could take out a drone,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and if you have more than one of them, then it gives you can be much more flexible in using them instead of sweating out. Do I use it now or do I hang on to it later?
Right. Right.
So there you go.
Understood.
It's just something to think about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and actually, the one I would love to try from the Saltorian, and it's kind of crazy because it basically gives you the 10 phaser 1 Saltorian. Whoops, I spelled it wrong the first time. Oh, jeez. The post is really bad. Here's what the post actually reads. On the Saltorian, I have a crazy idea. It's close to the 10 phaser Sectarian. Okay, I'm thinking about it does have 10 phaser ones, but it only has 2 PC cannons. That is basing the Saltorian tournament on the Selector CF, i.e., the fast cruiser. More power, less punch. When it comes to the PCs, and only 2 web breakers instead of the 3 at the moment. You know, I think autocorrect was working overtime when I was trying to do this post. So that's one that's read it in full with all the screw ups in it. But yeah, I'd love to try it out to see how well that would fly. With the 10 phaser ones,
I don't think it would fly well, personally.
mm-hmm,
Maybe it would, maybe it would.
true. The there's some benefits which are rarely seen when it comes to the particle cannons, which is of course particle cannon can fire twice around, twice a turn, but that's rarely ever occurs.
Well, the thing is this: it makes the particle cannons make it into a finesse ship, even though it's a very big, crunchy ship, and can take a lot of punishment. And I think that's I don't think it's necessarily as unbalanced as you were saying it is in
Mm-hmm. Oh, agreed.
prior
Mm-hmm.
conversations. I think it's more a matter of you really need to play it much more often to get the feel for it because, you know, a lot of the tournament play that I'm seeing here, it's like, okay, that's the only play you're getting with that thing in 3 months,
Right.
4 months, 6 months,
Agreed.
and it's a hard fail moment of play. It's not like you're spending all afternoon sitting down across from somebody. You play it out a few times in a day. It's you play out your match in the tournament, and if you lose, you're done.
Right.
And then you're not going to sit down and play that against another person until the next tournament.
Yep. Agreed.
So
Agreed.
that kind of makes it difficult to get experience at doing it.
Hmm. Agreed.
You know,
And the
and
one.
I think that's a ship that you need a lot of experience with to get the full finesse part down.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's my ramble.
Oh, understood. And the one thing that after I thought about the Andromedan this past weekend, and the speed, and then I realized one thing that you can try to do with the Saltorian is um, only use two of the particle cannons, and use the power that you normally would use for charging the particle cannons and keep up your speed. Because that's one thing I would like to see if it's possible, which is the maintaining of the range by basically almost not using the particle cannons. Because holding 3 points of energy costs a total of 6 points for if you're charging all four, holding all four particle cannons. For having 3 points of energy in each particle cannon, it's 1.5 to hold for each particle cannon. So 1.5 times 4 is 6. So if you only are holding on two of those, you just save yourself 3 points of energy. That 3 points of energy can be put into speed. So obviously, the most difficult part when it comes to speed, keeping up speed, is when you need to recharge your weapons. But that's how the cookie crumbles when it comes to SFB. How do you want to go? Fast or charge your weapons? Or defend or increase your defense? Which that's one of those things that truly I think FedCom helps a great deal in that it limits your ability to take energy that you have left over and use it for defense. You're limited by the amount of not battery power, number of batteries you have. Undisabled batteries. So, anyhow. Before I completely run this whole night just talking about the tournament and the Andromedans and the Saurians and tactics, which I'm sure some people would be happy to have go for, I want to switch off onto the main topic for this evening, which is actually a quick introduction into Klingon Armada, actually, given that we have like over half an hour or more. I'm not sure you guys can hear that or not. I have a train going past.
Nope.
Okay, cool, because I can hear it clearly. And it is...
I can hear my kids over the headphones and through a closed door.
Wow.
And they should be in bed asleep, and I'm not yelling at them right now for that. Mommy should be putting them to bed.
No comment.
Yeah, because tomorrow's a school day. But
Yeah.
but
Well,
but I don't think you hear them.
Yep. They'll be paying for it in the morning. Okay. And that, I want to go through what comes to Klingon Armada, at least an introduction to it. Because that was one thing I was focusing on at Gamers of Summer. I didn't get a chance to play anyone, but I did get a chance to go through, at the very least, combat and movement. There's other things I did not go through, and I definitely don't have time to introduce here. I know that for a fact. Which is the use of drones and how drones work and plasmas work. They have some additional, they have like tractors. Tractors work a little different in Klingon Armada than they do in SFB. And the funny part, actually, to be honest, is that I read the beginning part of Klingon Armada. The beginning part of Klingon Armada is basically the rules for Star Armada, at least an introduction to this rules for Star Armada. There's a lot more in the core. You want to read the full core rulebook for Star Armada, which is in my mind, a great game engine to work with, because it's a game engine which is designed to let you to actually create your own weapons. It gives you, it's like GURPS. When it comes to, you can add different attributes to your weapons, and that will allow it to do certain things, and you have different accuracies, and how does the weapon react to when it hits a ship, and different defenses, that kind of thing, which is actually it's really good. The one thing, and I'm sure I've said this, but previously in the past, when it comes to the Star Armada, one thing I really love, and I'm sure you all guys can hear me say it, which is basically asynchronous play. That is the requirement to pre-plot your movement. Now, the thing is, with Star Armada, unlike SFB, it's a lot shorter. It's like, in my mind, playing Federation Commander, but the movement portion is pre-plotted. So you're not reacting to the person who's who's your opponent. You try to figure out what the person's going to play, how the person's going to move, and then you have to base your movement off that movement, or what you think he's going to move. And just to let you know that I wanted to play Klingon versus Fed, but I ran out of ink, so I only had two. I had two Feds. I was playing on two Fed cruisers. And the one thing that it has an engine power of 5. What that means is it can move a maximum of 5 hexes. Originally, when it comes to Star Armada, 5 is the amount of engine power you have. And it uses Newtonian movement, which actually, that's the one thing after I read that I read the Starfleet Battles, or ADB, SFU universe adjustments, I went, oh, that was sad. Because there's one maneuver which I thought it does so cool. Which was, okay, one of the things you can do with Star Armada movement is that you can move, let's say, 3 hexes forward. Then you can say, at the end of what you move, I'm going to pivot. So you can move one, you can turn your ship 1 or 2 hex sides to a different direction. So if you've got someone behind you, you can kind of pivot your ship to fire at the guy behind you using your front weapons. And at the end of the turn, what do? You pivot it automatically back. So you just imagine a ship flying through the air this way, then going, eek, fire, eek, and then flipping backwards and going straight ahead. So it's like, that's interesting. When it comes to Newtonian physics, this kind of makes sense to a certain degree. In that, when you apply the amount of engine power that required to and actually change speeds. What is it? Let me look at this real quick. I'll show you the screen in just a moment. Just want to look at. Right. Okay. Let me go like this. Let's see if that's better. Okay. This, which is the engine requirements for each type of movement. If there's no turns, as in you go straight ahead, it's the difference between the previous and current speeds. So if you're going speed 5, the engine requirement is 0. So that means, in theory, if you only have an engine rating of 5, you can actually go to speed 10. In the difference in the between two turns, like you can start turn 1, you can be going 5 hexes. Then turn 2, which is again really short, you can increase the amount of speed, the rate of speed, to 10 hexes. Now, doing that is foolishness because of here. And that is, if you make one turn to move 1 hex side using these rules, you have to, the engine requirement is the greater of the previous current speeds. I.e., if you're going speed 10 and now you decide, I'm going to go speed 5, and you want to do a turn, that means you need to have 10 engines. So if you only have 5, you're screwed. I.e., you have to slow down before you actually can turn. So you can get to a point where you're going so fast forward, as in like my previous example, you're going speed 10, you can't turn until you slow down. So it would take you can go 5, then go up to 10. Now you have to go back down to 5 again for the third turn. So then on the fourth turn, you actually can change your speed. It's actually, I think you can.
It's a very different flavor.
Yeah. Now, yeah, the fourth. So yeah, it's a very different flavor. One thing I need to point out when it comes to movement is this. Okay, movement orders. Movement orders are like this. You put in the number of. Well, no, you on it. It's the number is the number of forward movement. So how many hexes you go forward. If you say P, that's port, or you're turning to the left. If you mark it as S, that's starboard. That's to the right. And U is a U-turn, i.e. 3 hex sides. So you turn around. And here's some quick examples of, for P2 means you go forward hexes, front, and then you turn left, and then you go two more hexes. Now, there is the ability to do side slips too. And they actually don't affect the amount of engine requirement, which is, in my mind, goofy, but it is. And that's marked by L and R. Also, okay, I'll do that first. And then the pivots are the plus and the minus pivots, so clockwise and counterclockwise. But you can't use pivots in SFB. Now, when it comes to the SFB portion, SFU, what basically it says, okay, let me see if I can bring it up real quick. I should have done is put a marker. Which is, give me a sec. It does have the idea of power, which is weird. Here it is. Engine requirements. There is no momentum in movement the movement seen in the Starfleet universe. And starships do not coast. They must use power to maintain the warp bubbles used. Coasting is technically possible at a speed of a couple hundred game turns per hex. In other words, kind of gently flowing forward. As a result, all ships' previous speeds are considered to be zero. When computing engine requirements, i.e., engine requirement is always equal to the amount of forward movement plotted. Which makes sense because if the the speed for the previous turn is always zero, that means the greatest speed you can have is the speed that you move that turn. So, now they have something interesting in Klingon Armada called engine power ratio. Now, what that does is that if you're going in the case of, let me do this first. Let's no, I want to. Where is it? Oh, where is it? Cat's stepping on my keyboard again. Okay, I can't find kids. I just have to remember 35. Okay, there it is. Now, here is Klingon D7, normal battle cruiser, has an engine of 6. Now, it has an engine power ratio of 4. Okay, what that means is that if the Klingon only uses, let's say, 4 engine rating, 4 of its total engine rating. So it's got a difference of 2 of unused. Take the 2 unused, multiply it by the EPR, the energy power rating ratio, and that gives you 8. Now, what you can do with that are 2 things. One is overload a disruptor. You can use 2 power points, PPs, to overload a disruptor. For each disruptor that you overload, it requires 2 power points. So, in the case of a turn that you want to overload your disruptors, you only can move a speed of 4, maximum speed of 4, so that you actually can fire all 4 of your, because there's 4 of them here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 disruptors. So now, another thing you can do with those PowerPoints is, okay, that's another way of achieving PowerPoints. Is this. You can actually use 5 PowerPoints as basically shield reinforcement. You have 5 PowerPoints, which you can, 5 PowerPoints can be used to block 1 point of damage against the shields. Thus, this is thus preserving 1 shield box. A ship may do this once per volley. A volley is defined as all weapons fired by 1 starship on another on the same combat phase. Each sinking flight is considered a separate volley, and a ship must have at least 1 shield remaining in the appropriate defensive arc. So that's one thing you can. Another thing that you can do with PowerPoints. Now, if you want to create PowerPoints, one thing that you can do, you can say, I'm going to take my phasers offline. And you have to do that at the beginning of your turn. So you would, as part of your orders, you would write NP, or no phasers, at the beginning of the ship's movement orders. This has no effect on speed or any requirements, but the ship receives 1 additional power point for each phaser 1 or phaser 2. These are So if you have, in the case of a ship that has like 6 phaser ones, if you say, I'm going to go with no phasers, that means it's going to increase the number of power points available during that turn to be 6. So that will give you 1 point of shield reinforcement, which is nice. Or it also can allow you to overload, in that case, three disruptors. Or actually also allows 2 power points is also the same requirement as the Fed has for overloading its photons. So I'm just gonna do a quick thing here, which is okay. So we want to move 3 hexes forward, and then we want to do a left. Okay, 3 hexes forward, then do a left side slip, and then turn left. What we can do is say L. We do 3 P L, and that is 3 movement. And instead of that Klingon again with 6 power, it now has 12 power points left over at the beginning of that turn. And then what happens is everyone does their orders first, their movement orders. After everyone's done their movement orders, then we all announce it, and then everyone goes and they do their movement plots. Boom, boom, boom. Obviously you have to write these down. So then what happens is that depending upon how many number of ships, if one person has like 2 point, actually, let me check this. I know it's for combat. I don't know if it's for movement. That's one thing I did not. I was more concerned on how the movement worked. Right, because actually, movement doesn't matter how you move your ships, because they all move at the same time. So you just everybody moves their ships as they are plotted, and then after that, after you have your orders phase, which is, of course, the movement. This has different options, but these recorded movement orders, which is what I would recommend doing, and that's one I enjoy. Then the movement phase, they move all orders according to the movement orders. There's other things here which don't apply. Okay, then there's the fighter phase. I did not look up the fighters and how those work, and I wasn't as concerned because I want to make sure that I could do movement and do combat. And the combat then is you have to declare the targets. Now, when you do targets, because this is also it's in theory everything is done simultaneously. It's kind of simultaneous resolution, but that's not the way it works when it comes to announcement. When it comes to announcement, what happens is that if you have a number of ships less than 2 compared to your opponent, so if it's like a 1-to-1, each side has 5 ships, then you just go back and forth between the two people. One person goes first, and the other person goes first. Another boom, 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 boom. I have to look up. I forget. There's a way of this deciding who goes first, but still it goes back and forth between ships. And then if one opponent has 2 times as many ships as the other player, then what you do is that person they move 2 ships to their opponent's 1. Then you keep doing that for the rest of the turn, and that holds true in the combat. So even if as part of combat you lose that ship, it's simultaneous. So that ship is not lost until after the combat is over. Resolve systems options used by weapons fire. Then the end phase is basically nothing to be said. Effects of weapon. That's when the actual effects of the weapon damage take place. So, i.e., that if you destroy a ship, it doesn't get actually destroyed until the end phase. Now, the way weapons work is... I won't bring up the Klingon again. Okay. Each weapon has certain traits. In the case of, you have DFN or CRN. CRN stands for carronade. What carronade means is basically you have a short range and you have a medium range, and you don't have a long range. That's what these are. You have short, medium, long. What short, medium, long does is it affects the accuracy of the shots. And what this is, okay, you got the first number here, that's considered the rate of fire. So for each weapon that you fire, you get to roll, have that many rolls. So, in the case of the phaser ones, you have a rate of fire of 1, so you get 1 die roll, and then it's 3 plus. Unlike SFB, Armada wants you to roll higher dice, not lower. Higher dice are good. Because in this case, 3 plus means that if you roll 3, 4, 5, or 6, it hits. If you roll 1 or 2, it misses. Now, when it comes to short, medium, and long, that adjusts the accuracy number. If it's a short range, you then do a -1 to the die roll. Sorry, +1 to the die roll. What that means is that if you roll a 2, it becomes a 3. If it's a 3, it becomes a 4, 4 becomes a 5, 5 becomes a 6, and so forth. So, to me, what that makes me, I actually do in my own mind, is that what it means is that the accuracy gets a -1. So it goes from 3 plus to 2 plus. And for short range. Medium range, it's 0. No change in accuracy. Long range, that when you do a -1 to the die roll. So if you rolled a die roll on this and you rolled a 3 now is a miss, because 3 minus 1 is 2. So you miss. Obviously, the way I think about it is actually is a +1 to the accuracy. So that means it goes from a 3 plus to a 4 plus. So that means there's only a 50% chance that it actually will hit. Now, normally you have 2 other rolls. You have your impact roll and you have your damage roll. The impact roll is that, does this weapon that just hit your ship, does it actually impact? Okay, let me get this right. Let me get this right, because I'm pretty sure I got it right. Which is, there's the hit impact roll. There it is. In order for it to score a hit must penetrate the target shield. So, for each hit scored as a result, to hit the roll number equal dice to the weapon's imp, i.e. in this case there's 1. For example, if a weapon with imp 2 scores 2 hits, then there's 4 impact dice. And compare the results with each die separately. And against the the shields, the impact rolls are necessary. Target without shields. Now, okay. This is Star Armada. Shields are different than shields in SFP. Shields in SFP are considered screens in Star Armada. Screens in Star Armada, what they do is you hit them and then you do damage. They're automatic hits. There is no impact roll because they're automatically hits. And then the last. Don't mind me. That is the last one. Okay, you got the impact roll, and after that, then you have the damage roll. Because what? Let me show. Yeah. For each die roll that exceeds the target shield rating, and that's if you're using shields, a number of dice is rolled equal to the weapon's damage. So, in the case of, let me go back to here. It's got a rate of fire of 1 for a phaser 1 to hit, an accuracy of 3+. It's got an impact of 1, and it's got a damage of 1. So if you hit, then you do 1 damage. Now the damage will go. See, these are screens, and these are directional screens. Okay, sorry, nothing at the moment. If you notice, there's only 4. This is not SFB when it comes to shields. This is one of those ones that, to me, as an SFB player, where things were easily defined when it comes to the shields, because you use the hex sides and the lines of the hexes to define what's the arc of the shield. Yay, simple. And that's not the case for Star Armada. Let me see if I can find it. Okay, that's the arcs. Here it is. Here's the defensive arc. And here's the weird part, people. This is the weird part. Forward starts on the hex in front of the ship. Now, one thing I forgot to mention, and that is, in Star Armada, you cannot end the combat, the movement turn. Get down, please. That would have been really bad. You cannot end your movement in the same hex as your opponent. That doesn't work. You can actually have multiple your ships in the same hex, but you can't have any enemy ship in your hex. This is one of those quirks of Star Armada versus SFB. And to a certain degree, it definitely simplifies things, because then you don't have that issue of which shield does it hit. Okay, which one moved first? Well, in the case of Star Armada, there is no move first. So, in this case, see, the forward starts here in the first hex up in front of the ship and goes out to the left in that angle, that oblique, 3 hexes. Then again, it goes up here and it goes for another 4 hexes. And I'm assuming this goes for like another 4. The same here, you got the 3, then the 4, I need a bigger arc. I need a bigger arc for this. And then the starboards, are for here, and then it goes out in this kind of weird, clunky kind of aspect when it comes to the arcs themselves. Again, it's kind of goofy, but okay. But in those directional shields for SFB are in Star Armada are directional screens because of the way they interact with the weapons. So what you would do is, okay, you roll a die. Okay, let's say that you're 6 hexes, let's say 3 hexes away. Roll the dice. Okay, you roll 3. Okay, great. You hit with 1. So figure out which shield it is, and then you mark off 1. And then as soon as the shield is completely gone, of course it gets internals. Oh, by the way, if you notice here with the overloads, that is, yeah, it's carronade, but also it gets 2 points of damage for each one that hits. So that's why it's overload. Requires 2 points of power. Now, the Klingon doesn't have what's called slow loading. Slow loading with the Klingon, what the Federation has, means that the weapon takes 2 turns to arm. Now, if you have the slow attribute twice, it takes 3 turns to arm, which is how it's represented when it comes to plasma. The plasma takes 3 turns. Now, okay. I was going to say, I'll say it anyway. The goofiness of Star Armada is this, the way I see it, in that the turns are shortened. So that means that the actual plasma torpedoes get charged more quickly. Because you got an engine here around 6. So let's just, for giggles, let's translate that into SFB terms. As a round, we're just rounding here. And that is, when it comes to movement, each turn is basically 8 impulses to a certain degree. Actions are a little different, so let's not try to compare those. But on speed alone, each turn in Star Armada is equivalent to 8 impulses of an SFB turn. Because that's basically, yay! The Ravens scores, so only behind 13-10. So, which means that overall the plasma torpedoes actually recharge more quickly. Now, of course, that also means the weapons fire more quickly. They fire every 8. They have the ability to fire every single 8 impulses. So, the recharge cycle, what previously for SFB is like 8 impulses is the minimum firing. 8 impulses, you can get to fire them every single turn. Now remember, phasers, I know they're constrained by power. The only thing that requires power is going to be your overloads. So, now, when you roll and you get through the shields, okay, what you do then? Of course, you roll weapons. You roll damage. And let me just bring that up. Is that it? No. Damage roll. Here it is. Now, when it comes to Star Armada, you have a damage roll, a single die roll. You can either hit hull, engine, weapon, or shield. Now, as noted later on in the rulebook, shield hits are completely ignored because there are no shields. They're screens. So ignore them. Now, the weapon hits are interesting because you don't actually hit individual weapons. What happens is, let me bring it back up again. You'll notice right here. And that is, there's a track of weapon. In the case of the D7, it goes 19, 16, 12, 8, 4. What that means is if you get a weapon hit, you take 19, you go X that off. So that means you got, and the next one is 16. So that means you got to take 3 weapons hits. You have to destroy 3 weapons in all of the weapons that you have. And then, of course, go from 16 to 12. Okay, you have to destroy another 4. 12 down to 8, destroy another 4. 8 to 4, destroy another 4. Now, there are no rules governing that you must, there's no rules governing how to allocate your damage when it comes to weapons. I.e., it doesn't have to be within the same shield facing that you just got the internals through. That's not the case. Also, there's nothing that when it comes to rules, when it comes to, okay, I have to destroy my third best phaser. On my third phaser hit, I have to, on the same volley, I have to destroy my best phaser. That's not the case. You don't have different kinds of weapons. There's a torp weapon like a disruptor versus a phaser. There is no difference when it comes to weapons hits. So when you get a weapon hit in Star Armada, it decreases, and then you have to automatically mark it off. They do have some additional things when it comes to anti-drones, tractor beams. Actually, I need to check because I did not check on damage allocation when it comes to tractor beams and anti-drones. And obviously this one Klingon has 2 drone racks, and I have not, as I mentioned before, I did not look at the drone racks and how seeking weapons work. When Star Armada first came out, when Klingon Armada first came out, the drones were done poorly. They really did. I say that just because they didn't really match the way that they worked in SFB. And actually, in the Unity edition of Star Armada, I think I haven't looked at the drones, but from the combat, the rules I've read and actually play with and actually understand, and the movement and that kind of thing, I really feel like in the Unity edition, I think Daniel finally got it right. The one thing that I know they still are have not done is the Andromedan, which is, if you think about it, it's not an easy task because of the Andromedan's speed and their weapon systems and how that whole thing works is completely different than the other empires. So, big surprise. So it makes it difficult to translate into Daniel's gaming engine. Now he might have to do some additional work to actually have that happen. The whole idea of a closed, quote unquote, closed energy system, the ability to quickly remove damage from the shields. He might actually have to do something which I'm not saying he's loath to do, which is how does he handle PA panels? Because currently PA panels, for the most part, when it comes to ships, they're 180 degree arcs. Does he introduce the concept of 180 degree screen instead of having the 4 screens? That is forward, aft, port, starboard. He will have 2 front and rear. Don't know. I'm more than willing. I have not contacted Daniel about it. I would actually really like to, just because I feel like I have a pretty good grasp especially now when it comes to the Star Armada rules. Now, obviously, I'm not as I don't interact as much as I really would like to with Daniel, because he, just like SFU Online, Daniel has a Discord server. Also, he brought back from its death the forum, because if any of you guys know MJ12 Games, which is Daniel Cast's gaming company, he's like me. He's like me in that Daniel has a full-time job, and MJ12 Games is not it. MJ12 Games is his side hustle, the one he does for the enjoyment of actually creating a game system and doing things like that. At least that's my understanding. Because certain things, they get slowed down and sidetracked, and I can see how that can easily happen if you have a daytime job, which actually, pays the bills. I get the same thing with SFB Online, is that I got something that pays the bills, and then I have SFB Online. And there's no way at the moment that SFB Online could ever replace my day job salary. Short of the number of people who play SFB be, holy cow, it'd have to be huge.
Or suddenly Elon Musk decides he likes SFB and he becomes your patron.
Oh Lord, don't even get me.
Or one of your listeners hits the lottery
and decides to share his wealth.
Yeah,
that would be great.
So,
anybody who's playing the lottery and you win, please tell me that if you want to invest in SFB's future, in my future.
I have this scheme. Come by here, play cribbage, beat me horribly, and if you're really lucky, go buy a lottery ticket. See if the two correlate.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'd love to do that. Not gonna happen this weekend. Probably won't happen next weekend.
Hey, you can pop down sometime.
Oh yeah, I know. Yeah. I know.
We can work on the Eve thing.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah,
I would. On the Eve thing, maybe do some Eve time together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would love to do the one thing that we didn't get a chance to do on Sunday, which was to sit down and create some frigates. Some configuration of frigates.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Or get you into a nice mission boat for a destroyer. So there's a possibility too. And
that's one thing.
That's basically it.
Yeah, that's one thing I'm hoping.
Get your exploration set up so that you don't die every time you go out. I mean.
Oh, understood.
Every other time.
That is one thing that I did do, which was I've been skilling up armor skills.
Mm-hmm. Good.
Yeah.
That reminded me of two things I wanted to tell you on before you left the building. I forgot. One of those was that if you go into your skills and you look at the armor skills and you look at the shield skills, there's basically one skill for each of the resist types that gives you bonuses for specific modules, that anything that has an effect on that particular resist type.
Right.
And then there's some other ones that do like a general thing of reduces your penalty for, armor plate thing or shield thing, or reduces your CPU need, or this, that, and the other. Just various stuff for those different types. And the other thing was to take a general philosophy, because I can understand this coming from a different thing as a starting player in Eve. Take a general philosophy of, if you got a module, slap something in it.
Right.
Because even though the amount of hit points you get out of it is negligible if you're not using it, the fact is, if if you can tank your ship that much more, or do something else that, make it more agile or harder to hit or whatever, anything that increases your ship's survivability helps you get with that core mission, even if the mission is not fighting.
Right.
So,
Oh, understood.
so that was the thought.
Hmm.
The that was pretty much it. I mean, gamers went well. I didn't get to tell you this, but we broke even on the last day.
Yeah, I saw that. I
So,
saw the post on Facebook. That was great to hear. That was really,
yay! Thank you everybody who threw the extra couple bucks at me when you learned that we hadn't like quite broken even yet, because it actually really made the difference. And yeah, that's basically it. So I have the contract. We haven't signed it yet, but we're going to go back to the same place for February for
hmm for
President's Day
stay.
weekend.
Yeah.
And we don't know if that will be the last one at this venue or not, because of the corporate thing where they're looking at repurposing the building, selling it out, and some other issues they were having with the township and whatnot. But that I've learned about since. That's all public knowledge stuff. But
Right.
hey, who knows? Uh, if the place is in business, I would like to be there again, because that's one of the best places we've been at as for our purposes of what we do.
Oh yeah, agreed there.
And I think maybe I don't know if they're gonna have the tour buses there again, because I didn't see any of that this past weekend, so I don't know if the tour bus companies stopped coming when they heard about the management wanting to sell the place and so forth and so on. If they just stopped booking, or if they went somewhere else or whatever.
Right. Right.
But who
Well,
knows?
no,
I
the
mean,
thing
it could
is,
mean lower rates for people to stay
yeah.
over.
Oh, agreed. The that was one thing in my understanding for that place was that weren't they already supposed to be under contract to transform it already? It just
No,
that part fell through, so it's not gonna be. It wasn't gonna be now. It was gonna be like, you know,
yeah, what they were looking at was selling it out to somebody that was going to turn it into a rehab center. And
right.
there were some zoning issues with that. And the township basically turned around and said, no. And so I don't know how that's going to move forward, or if it will move forward.
Mm-hmm.
That's, you know, not our, while it is our concern in that it does affect us, it's not our lane. It's not our thing. We don't own it. We have no influence in it. So
Right. Right.
there's that.
True.
Um, yeah, so
Okay.
yay, gamers. It would be nice to see more people come out. I mean, it's like, there was that one guy on Facebook that kept asking, "Are you going to have games?" And I'm like, "Yeah." Never saw him, and I know him. I know the guy's a local guy that played SFB. I played with him years ago, and it's like, the best way for anybody to get an event done is to actually schedule it. You know, if you live within an hour or two or convenient drive,
Jeez.
and you want to play a particular scenario that you've not gotten to play with the players in your area, or the players in your area are non-existent now, you know,
Hmm.
contact me and schedule the scenario.
Yeah.
If it's on the schedule, then maybe somebody will come out and give it a shot with you.
Yep.
But if it's I hope, I wish, and I don't see it there, so I'm not going to waste my time coming out, then it's not happening. You don't have to be a full-fledged GM to schedule something.
Right. Right.
So
Agreed.
that's basically it. I mean,
And then
it's
there's
having
that
the
one guy who
player
came
input.
out from Jersey.
Yeah, yeah, I was actually surprised to hear that afterwards. I didn't know that he came out for the day from New Jersey, but the guy had the time and the effort, and he had talked to somebody else in our group, and came out for it. And I hope he had a good enough time that he brings friends out and
Yeah,
next time around.
yeah,
So
because at the very least, it's a great place to game. You know, you don't have to worry about kids. You know, and also the great thing about that is that you can get away from, if you're married or have kids, you can get away from the house,
this,
play your favorite game, and not have to be worried about being interrupted. You know,
for the most part, yeah, absolutely. And the other side of all that is if you have a gaming group that comes over on a regular basis, like our gentleman who runs Mouse Ritter, he has a regular gaming group, and they come out for this because he runs stuff that he won't run at the home game,
mm-hmm.
basically. He says, well, here's something extra special that we can do there where we're, like you're saying, not going to get interrupted and whatnot, and we can try other stuff. Like they tried fairy meat, and apparently they kind of liked being introduced to that, and that's probably going to be on the schedule in the winter game.
Cool.
So, um, and they liked Og on Monday. They got to play Og.
Yep. Og can
So
be. Og
there's
can.
that.
I've never played Og, but I've watched it, and it looks like it can be so much fun.
Yeah, you get into it. It's a simple game. It's fun, and it's not something that people do in their regular home game.
Yep.
Because most of the regular home game experience, in my opinion, ends up being a group of people that are all interested in basically one or two things, you know. And like for instance, way back when I was in a particular group in between my military time, um, they were interested in either Rollmaster or Call of Cthulhu, and we rotated between the two. And it's like, they tried a science fiction type thing once and then decided they didn't feel like doing that. So they basically stuck with, for the most part, like one of two campaigns for Rollmaster. One was Middle Earth based, and the other was not Middle Earth based. And the Call of Cthulhu thing, which was one was run in the classic 1920s style, and I ran the Gaslight version.
Mm-hmm.
The 1890s steampunky kind of thing. And actually, it wasn't really steampunky; it was just the 1890s type of thing. Before steampunk became a big deal back in the day. Um, you know, or or your group is like a small handful of people that are into like a particular niche version of wargaming, like tabletop miniatures games, or and even there, a lot of people go super specific, like they're only going to do Napoleonics and/or Civil War, or they're only going to do World War II modernish, you know. And you'll have some that will do all of that, and a lot of those guys will gravitate towards a club type environment, but that's a whole other story. So I've considered starting a club
Mm-hmm.
for the area with like a building and everything else. But on the other hand, I don't feel like competing with the game shops. And I don't know if I'd want to do it as, a business or as a nonprofit where the club members all vote on everything, because I've actually seen that where uh, a group in another county, I was part of that group for a while, and this was like on the in between the Army tours back in the 80s thing. But their interpersonal politics kind of did that in over time, and but it is possible to have a club where you have people with all sorts of different interests coming together to have that kind of space. Now that was also in a time when the game shops in the area really hadn't adapted themselves into being like um, rent a table spaces. kind of thing.
Right.
And when Adventurers Guild opened up, and they went with the we're going to have a bunch of tables kind of thing, they basically did what I was considering doing if I opened a shop, and they got to it first. So I just said, not so much for that idea.
Yeah, you didn't want to compete. Understood.
Well, I didn't want to compete, and there was like two established businesses in the area.
Right. Right.
One on each side of the river, and the first one, which was that game place, the guy only had like one or two table space, and originally, when he eventually sold the business, and then um, the next guy moved the business, he moved it into a space where he could have half a dozen plus tables, and had a lot of, a lot more gaming space where people could come in and run their weekly campaign type of setup without having to be at home. Or they could play a war game or a board game. But I think a club environment would be like much better for doing that sort of thing, but there's so many pitfalls with it, so many challenges. Um, it could be like a full-time job kind of thing. And then again, there's the whole aspect of how do you keep interpersonal politics from screwing the thing up? What kind of how do you run the competing interest within the place? And how do you have that core purpose of being accessible to the public, yet also kind of a private club kind of deal?
Right.
You know, like, do you run it like a pool hall kind of setup, except that it's all table space? Or do you run it as a game shop? And I really just don't want to run a game shop.
Right.
I don't see them as a viable business model by themselves anymore.
Agreed.
I see a lot of the companies are moving into a let's over monetize our players kind of thing, and very predatory practices that I think in the long run can turn people off from coming into the industry, into that hobby. A whole bunch of different thoughts on all that.
Yeah. Well.
So, on the other hand, if you're running a private club kind of thing, then the issue becomes how much do you charge? How elitist does it end up being? Is it, something where a bunch of retired guys, well off people, doctors, lawyers, you know, people with well paying jobs that can afford a big chunk of money to have a place away from home to do their thing in, pay for that kind of space? Or is it more of a, open to everybody, low fee, large volume membership kind of thing?
Right. Well, but that becomes a problem just because of overall you have to, if you're going to have something like that, one, you have to someone monitor people that come there. Two, you have to possibly pay someone to watch it while people are coming. That kind
Well,
of
and
thing.
that's where, like club officers come into the thing.
Mm-hmm.
People getting paid potentially for, having employees for the club or
Yeah.
not.
Right. Well,
I mean,
that's one thing. If
because
it's a
if I'm doing it as a business, as a
right,
sole proprietor,
right,
I could say, okay, it's a social club. But the question is, do I want that social club to be non-profit with everything that entails, or do I want to keep it as like a sole proprietorship where you have to pay like a Sam's Club kind of membership fee to be in there, and you get perks and whatnot
right.
for it?
Understood. Like currently, I think my archery club is a great archery club because of we use basically we have a keypad at this point. It used to be fobs where people can come anytime they want. but you have to become a member and pay fees, every single year to have access to the club. So.
Yep.
So.
Well, and then the other side of all that is, like, if people want to keep their games there, do they keep them in private lockers? Do you have,
Right.
how do you monitor all that?
Exactly.
What kind of security do you set up?
Right. Understood.
What kind of access do you have? Because it's really, like, not necessarily going to be a solo endeavor. So.
Yep.
But that was just a random thought that popped out there at the end. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, we gotta close it up because it's already 10 after 11. I still haven't even recorded the news portion, so I'm gonna be up late tonight. So.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Well, in that case, there's also topics No, go ahead.
Dude, if I have to, I will cut you off, man. I will cut you off.
All righty.
Okay.
Thank you, Paul.
Okay, you're welcome. Okay. So, Doug, you have a good night.
Thanks for having me on, Paul.
Okay, you're welcome. So, had a nice little discussion there about creating a gaming space. Of course, a quick overview of how Klingon Armada works. Obviously, I didn't actually show you how it works, but I'd explained it to you, and hopefully you understand it enough that you can, if you're interested, hey, buy a copy and read it and go through it. And actually, that's how I really learned how things worked as I was going through that and learning that. Obviously, I want to learn more about it. I want to learn how are drones implemented. How I remember, I think I mentioned before that I actually talked to Daniel about tractors and saying the way you have tractors going, that's not the way they work in SFB, and he changed things. So you can say thank you to me. But anyway, but that kind of thing, which I think is great. And of course, quick, how to fix the Andromedans in tournament play, and I agree with Doug that I need to play the Centaurians more and get an opportunity to actually play them outside of just the Sapphire Star tournaments, to play them more. The crazy thing is that I'm going to need to grab someone, and also I need to spend some time just hanging out on SFU Online, or at least maybe even see if I can plan some sessions with people to, okay, I want to play the Centaurian, pick a ship and we'll fly. That kind of thing. Anyway, with that, I am Paul Franz, and I bid you a good night.